What's up, it's Timmy's here. With 28 years later at this week, I'm of course doing my list of my top 10 favorite Danny Boyle movies. Danny Boyle is a very interesting filmmaker. Like, he has made some interesting films over the years. So, of course, he is an Oscar-winning director. So there's that. So here are my official top 10 favorite films of his. All right, number 10 is Shallow Grave. Now, this is actually the movie that really was his like directorial debut, if I'm not mistaken. And this also starred a very young Ewan McGregor, and it's about like three inmates find out that their new roommate is dead, and with like a suitcase full of cash, when they decide to like keep the money, paranoia and violence spiral out of control. It is very intriguing with of course a young Ewan McGregor, Christopher Eccleston, like before Doctor Who fame, Kerry Fox. It is very an interesting one. Very like a really decent thriller here. Of course, very dark, stylish. Of course, this was actually before Trainspotting came out, and it was really intriguing, say the least. Of course, it had like the Trainspotting DNA here, great character dynamics. So definitely give that one a go if you guys haven't seen it. Number 9 is of course Millions. Now, this was a very interesting film because, it was, of course, like a family movie directed by Danny Boyle, who hasn't really ventured into the family genre. And, of course, if you guys don't know much about Millions, it is about this kid who discovers a bag full of stolen money just days before the UK switches to Arrow. And, of course, as he and his brother debate what to do with it, their lives all change forever. It is a really heartwarming, adventure film. Very like whimsical, some really decent moral question, great family dynamics. Of course, Alex Ethel plays like the young kid here. It is a really decent one worth giving a go. All right, number 8 is Yesterday. Now, I'm here to tell you that Anna de Armas is not in this movie. I just want to let people know that. If you just look up Anna de Armas Yesterday, you'll probably find out what the joke is. But this is, of course, about this guy played by Amish Patel, who, of course, after like a global blackout, he of course wakes up. So pretty much in a world like where in a world where like no one remembers who the Beatles are except for him. I love this one. It was actually Danny Boyle's last movie he did before 28 Years Later came out this week. And Yesterday is a really decent one. Of course, the Beatles music is great. You had Lily James. Kate McKinnon was also in this one. Some other decent cast members, such as like, of course, you had Joe Fry and Sharon played himself here. Yesterday is just such a great one. Of course, I did remember watching this one in theaters back in 2019. It is one of like his most underappreciated ones, but it's really this one worth giving out. All right, number 7 is a sequel, and that is T2 Trainspotting. Now, of course, this takes place like 2 decades after the events of the first Trainspotting, where like Renton returns to the Edinburgh and reunites with his old friends here, and it is like more trippier than the first film. Ewan McGregor is just as good. Of course, Johnny Lee Miller. Of course, Robert Kyle, Ewan Bremer, Kelly MacDonald. The one who plays like Ewan McGregor's love interest, I forgot the actress name. She was actually pretty solid in this. It is a really decent one, worth giving a go, with great performances. Probably not as good as the first film, but definitely is a really decent one. Alright. Number 6 is Steve Jobs. Of course, this is the movie about the Apple founder. Of course, you got like Michael Fassbender, Seth Rogen, Kate Winslet. Of course, both Winslet and Fassbender got Oscar nominations for this. Well deserved there. They're both really excellent in their roles. It is really showcased on who Steve Jobs was. Again, Seth Rogen was great. Catherine Waterston was terrific in this. Of course, it was written by, I believe, like Aaron Sorkin wrote this too, if I'm not mistaken. The writing is great. If you guys haven't seen Steve Jobs, definitely give that one a go. Alright. Number 5 is, of course, we got the new one coming out 28 years later. 28 years later, of course, is about the deadly virus who devastates Britain, turning like pretty much turning victims into like ragging infected here, and of course you got Killing Murphy in his like breakout role if you want to call that. It of course it was like where zombies, a very different zombie film. It's a really terrific one. Great performances by the cast. Definitely get 20 days later. I can't wait to see the movie. By the way. All right, number 4 is 127 Hours. Now, this movie is, of course, based on a true story of a like climber who gets trapped by a boulder and in a remote canyon and must like survive 5 days alone here. And he ends up actually cutting off his arm, which is insane to believe. James Franco was terrific. Of course, he got an Oscar nomination, well deserved there. I know it's very awkward talking about James Franco nowadays, but yeah, he was still pretty solid in this one. Really played the part very well. Really emotional at times, very intense to watch. I probably only seen this once or twice, and that's really it. It's not really an easy watch, you know. And it's still a really good one. It has lots of emotions to it. Very intense. Like it is insane to believe this is based on a true story, but yeah, it really is. All right, number 3 is the movie that won him his Oscar, and that is Slum Dog Millionaire. Of course, this is about a poor teenager from Mumbai who becomes a contestant on the Indian version of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. And of course, it made stars out of Dev Patel, Frida Pinto. Slumdog Millionaire is even though I still think the rest of the show won Best Picture instead, I still thought Slumdog Millionaire was really decent, really heartfelt. Chemistry between Dev Patel and Frida Pinto, which by the way they actually dated in real life, so there's that. But so it is a really decent one, worth giving a go. So highly recommend that one. They're supposed to be doing some sort of sequel to it. Curious to see how that's going to be. Number 2 is going to be unpopular, and I don't care what you say the unpopular thing is not. Number 2, people probably consider this as his worst film. I don't care what anyone says. I will defend this one for years to come. That is The Beach. The Beach is a much better movie than most people give out to me. I adore The Beach. Of course, about like this, this young man who's this backpacker in Thailand discovers like a hidden island paradise with a commune. But of course, like quickly turns sinister and paranoia here. Of course, you had Tilda Swinton. The beach area is really beautiful to watch. Leo DiCaprio was great here. Believe it or not, I believe Leo DiCaprio got a Razzie nomination for this, which that is unfair. This movie is much better than the Razzies, but what do I know, I guess. But The Beach is still a really good one. It is really beautiful to watch. Great performances by the cast. It is a really decent one worth giving a go. Very underrated in my opinion, but... And of course, his best work is... I already talked about the sequel, and that is the first film, Trainspotting. The sequel is good, again, it is a good one, but nothing beats the first film. Trainspotting is still a really great one. It is, of course, about, a group of addicts in 1990s, Edinburgh, who navigates, addiction, friendship, betrayal, and stuff. And it's, very dark, it's very funny. Really, I guess you could say it's, Danny Boyle's Requiem for a Dream before Requiem for a Dream ever came out. It got released. Holy cow. Next year, by the way, the movie will be turning 30 years old next year. Wrap your heads around that one. But yeah, of course, Ewan McGregor. Obviously, you had, Johnny Lee Miller, Ewan Bremner, Robert Carlyle, Kelly MacDonald. It's such a really good one if you guys haven't seen it. But that's pretty much it there. Here is, of course, my quick rundown. Number 10, Shallow Grave. 9, Millions. 8, Yesterday. 7, T2 Trainspotting. 6, Steve Jobs. 5, 28 Days Later. 4, 127 Hours. 3, Slumdog Millionaire. 2, The Beach. And number 1 is Trainspotting. Now, he did do that movie Trance with James McAvoy. That's probably his worst film, in my opinion. I was not too big with Sunrise, Sundown, or Sunset, I think was called. It's not really memorable. He did also do, a few other stuff here and there. A Life Less Ordinary. that's okay. Just I didn't care for it that much. But these are actually his better ones, in my opinion. But let me ask you guys, what is some of your favorite Danny Boyle movies? Drop comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that bell for notification. This is Sammy Saga.